obviously a lot to be excited about. Let's just, we could start, obviously today's Monday night, but tomorrow night we open up volleyball. Got top 10 matchup with volleyball, so wishing them luck against Louisville. That would be tomorrow night, and a lot of other things within the athletic department that are really exciting too, right? I mean, obviously season tickets, our fundraising for our indoor. So there's a lot of internal excitement for the start of what we call our season. So I'll get that out of the way quick just to make sure that everybody kind of understands there's a lot more going on than just what's going to happen on the 30th. But for us, I think that this is the longest week of the year within your entire season. So within the entire program, right? I mean, whether it's off season, whether it's spring football, that week one build-up is the longest week of the year, and I think our kids would probably say the same thing, right? You go through fall camp, then you kind of switch gears a little bit as we came back to campus, and you're still not into game mode, and then you all of a sudden go into game mode, and you do it a few days early, just trying to make a break between fall camp and things like that, and then this week becomes incredibly, incredibly long. Today's a Monday, which will have a Wednesday practice, so try to figure all that stuff out. As you try to build your routine, school hasn't begun. So that's what I mean by for our kids, for our coaches, it's always week one is a long week. When school's not in, it's even a longer week. So Friday can't get here fast enough. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think for us, that's kind of the key, right? Is week one in college football is different than any other sport, I think, out there. Why? Because we have no real preseason game. We have no scrimmage, right? It's probably the only sport out there, the high-level sport, that you don't have some idea, some type of scrimmage, some type of competition with another group that you can, get a little bit of a better idea of where you are and how you do things and how you handle things. So, this is I think my 24th year, somewhere right around there in college coaching, and I don't know that it's going to change, and it hasn't changed. So you'd think that, well, Coach, you ought to be used to this by now, but I don't know that you do get used to that. Each and every year, week one is so unique, as we saw even in week 0 last week. There's a lot of unknowns, not just because they're college football kids, because they're 18 to 22-year-olds, but also because of those other things we talked about. No opportunity to scrimmage, whether it's in the spring, in fall, as many turnovers and transfers and things like that a lot of programs have. So that week one there's a lot of build up to it, and we're getting close. We're excited about that, but we've still got some work to do before we get to the 30th.
I had never really thought about this before, the scrimmage thing. You have a voice in this sport. Have you made a passionate plea, or what are the cons against it?
I don't know. I think that obviously there's a lot of change in college football. There's a lot of change coming in our landscape. So I think that it could bring about some different opportunities, right? And like I said, it's been 24 years. You'd think you'd get used to that, but that's what makes week one so uniquely different, right? There's nothing in the spring. There's nothing in the fall. And then you get thrown into it. Now, they may look at it and say, well, now that there's a 12-team playoff, not that every game doesn't matter, but there's a little bit of a difference, to even your first few weeks. But I would envision, as we move forward in this landscape, that hopefully we can find a way, whether it's something in the spring or something in fall camp, to, simulate maybe what they do at the next level. But again, it's really hard to spend a whole lot of time and voice a whole lot of opinions on things like that when, we've got a lot of work to do ourselves. So I try to stay off of rules committees. I try to stay off of some of those other committees just from the nature of, dealing with 120 guys here. That's the most important thing.
Talking about changes here, Coach, the addition of the tablets and the intercom and the headphone or in the helmet.
Yep.
How does that impact things for you guys? And if I'm not mistaken, you guys can take it a little bit farther with the tablets than they can at the professional level.
Yeah, I think the professional level, all they have is still pictures. Now, I don't know how far deep that gets to. There's 100 still pictures on each play. Maybe they can kind of make it look like it's an actual play. We had it in the bowl game, so we got an opportunity to kind of see what that was like a little bit in the bowl game. Recognize some things that we got to do better from spending a game with that, and then haven't had a whole lot of time. We had one kind of mock game where we had the opportunity to bring in all the technology in one setting. So It's definitely different. I think that you've got to have a plan for it, whether it's the headset, whether it's the technology. But I also think that it can be overwhelming too. So we got to try to figure out what that balance is. Each kid can handle some things a little bit different, right? Do you need to watch every single play? Do you need to be, evaluating yourself on every single snap? I think that's probably not going to be the best thing for everybody, but it does give us an opportunity to make sure we're using it in the best way. How can it be an advantage for us and our program and our kids? In particular on game day. And I think obviously we feel really good about the plan of where we are and how we're going to use it. But there'll obviously be some things that can adapt and adjust as we get rolling.
Coach, do you have an update on James Thompson and, how long he might be out with the status?
No, it doesn't look like James is probably going to make it. I don't know that we'll have him for the year. There's a lot of things that are still we got to wait and see, right? I mean, I don't know if it's a 4 to 5 month thing. He had surgery, I think last week. We really haven't really talked about it, but it's a big loss. It's tough. And, a guy in his senior year that has been through so many things and has meant so much to us. I mean, obviously over his time here, but even in this off season, and our ability to continue to grow and do the things we want to do, and kind of really. Put guys in leadership roles, and he's done an unbelievable job and fired up and ready to go. And, the unfortunate thing happens, and now he'll be in a little bit of a different role for us this year. I don't know that we'll have a chance to get him back.
Luke, you mentioned that the 12-team playoff and the way things are changing this year. I know you have experience in a 4-team field. You know how hard that is. In what ways do you think a 12-team field changes things for a program like Wisconsin as you go into a season in this new era?
I don't know that you look at it any different. If you go, you're guaranteed to be in if you put yourself in that four-team selection. But I do think that in the long run, what it's going to do, it's going to make the season, the length of the season, the later games in the year become I not to say that they're not important, but more important in the eyes of everybody around college football. And I think that's what will create a greater excitement even about where college football is, right? I mean, sometimes late in the year, they're all looking for we only have so many matchups this week, and there's so many more games that are going to have an impact on what those 12 teams look like that I think it's a great thing for college football. I think it's a great thing for the programs, because if something does happen early in the year, you're not out of things. And again, in year one, we'll all see how that all works, how does it really balance out as we move forward, where do those championship teams go, or how do the AQs go? I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be, probably ironed out and will be ironed out in the next probably year or two with all of that. But I think what it does as a whole, it makes college football better. It gives you opportunities to play games like we got on week 3 where you're not overly worried about, hey, this is the whole season because you're playing a week 3 game against a top 5 opponent. And all that puts us on the outside because, if you're not undefeated, then you're not going to have a chance. And so I think in the long run, it does a lot more for college football. I think it does a lot more in just the landscape of keeping kids involved and maybe not opting out and things like that because they all want an opportunity to not only play in the playoffs but play for championships. And, as we've gotten smaller and tighter in college football, I'm not saying the bowls have gone away because they haven't, but the importance sometimes of the bowls and what has made college football, I think, so great, to have successes at the end of the year and to have those opportunities. I think we're opening up a new avenue where we're going to give a lot more opportunities for a lot of different teams, and it'll be better for college football in the long run.
Just wondering what you've seen from Ches during this preseason, off-season, just what it says for him to come back after all the injuries he's kind of dealt with over the years.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, injuries are injuries, and how people deal with them are really key and critical. And Ches has had his, right? He's had his ups and he's had his downs, and he's had his really tough moments. And, for us, more than anything, obviously we love Ches and we want him to have an incredible season. We want him to have, all the things that he expected and expects. The thing about it is building that confidence from coming back from a lot of those injuries. And I can say this, that he's in a much different place from what I've known even from last year. And I mean that because in spring football, we went live with Ches. And it wasn't something that maybe we thought we were going to do. And I think it started to build his confidence when all of a sudden he was able to go live and get that feel back. And then in fall camp, we went live with him again in there and have the true ability to, kind of test yourself and see where you are. And I really do believe I've seen, he's had a great attitude. He's worked his tail off in everything that we've done, but that confidence level of truly carrying the football, truly making plays, truly taking care of it. When you do some of those things we did in fall camp and let him go in live situations, I think it's really kind of helped build his confidence, not just in his leg, but in all things that tends to get taken away sometimes when you go through as many tough injuries as he has. So I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited for him to, kind of let loose again. And I really do think that his confidence level and stuff is in a really good place.
You've said previously what you look for in a quarterback, leader and winner. I'm curious how you evaluate it beyond the scoreboard and beyond the leadership stuff. Are there metrics you look at in terms of what makes a quarterback, what means he had a good day or a good season?
Well, it's hard. Good day can be up and down, and that's all a part of it. I think the day after sometimes not good days is really a great evaluating stick. Evaluation, kind of meter to see, hey, how do they handle those things? Because it's going to happen, whether it's in a series or in a game. And the consistency, to me, is what has to be in your quarterback position. And whatever that means, whatever that looks like, I think that's why it was a little bit more critical for us to, so to speak, name. Not name publicly always the starting quarterback early on, but I think it was really important for us to kind of put those guys in the situation that we thought it was going to be earlier on, to see how they were going to be able to handle it, see how their leadership abilities were grow, see how that relationship amongst, Tyler and Braden, how that flourishes too once all of a sudden some things are, kind of labeled, right? Whether it's a 1 and a 2 or a 1A and a 1B. So that part of that position is so critical. And like I said, where we are right now is a really good spot. I think both those guys have done an unbelievable job. You have seen a difference in Tyler since that time, and I mean that even not as ups and down, not as even as emotional, but truly being a little bit more vocal, standing in front of that group a little bit more. And then you've seen Braden kind of flourish a little bit too. Obviously disappointed, when all of a sudden you kind of name Tyler as a starter, but not at a point where he didn't still become a really healthy competition within that room and a relationship where they can help each other out. So I think on both sides of it, you kind of look at to say, okay, what does this look like, right? This position is so special and so unique that no matter what you do, you've got to have a guy in leadership positions at that spot. And I think they've done a really good job. Now, obviously, come Friday night, it starts to be the other tests and the ultimate test to what they do. But they do understand that there's a lot of other people around them, and I do feel like they understand and know that, it's not just on them.
Luke, what would you say are the biggest differences from where Joe Brunner is in his game from the start of last season to now?
Well, it was hard because last season Joe didn't get a whole lot of opportunities. He was a guy that you definitely noticed, whether he was a starter or not last year. In my mind, always had the makeup of what you were looking for as an offensive lineman in the toughness department and the physicality department and the way he played the game and the energy and the emotion he played with. It was just unfortunate that he didn't get a whole lot of opportunities, right? Not many years you could ever say that your starting 5 play the entire season without, having an injury until obviously Jack rolled his ankle in the bowl game. But I was impressed. I was impressed that, even the difficult times he had to go through when he wasn't getting the opportunity to play, that you still saw the things that you wanted to see from an offensive lineman, right? And his grit and his toughness. And then obviously with the opportunity starting in the spring and all the way through fall camp, I think he's a guy that went on the play hard board, and that's not an easy thing, right? Because at that position in particular, you're going to be on some ISO cams, and we're going to evaluate every single step of what it is that you do on a daily basis. And so I think he brings a little something different to the rest of that crew, and I don't mean just the youth behind him, but a little bit of an edge as well.
Coach, Max Lofi kind of got hurt at an inopportune time in the middle of that coaching transition there and didn't get to play at all last year. I was curious, what have you seen from him behind the scenes that's allowed him to get back to where he is, probably better than he was before after that year off? And do you have a sense of what Friday means to him, just kind of make that start?
So it's hard to say exactly where he was before that, right? Because I didn't know. But if I said it in the spring and if I said it in the start of fall camp from last year, I think I said Nazir was the guy that had made the biggest leap in my mind throughout winter and spring and even into fall camp. Now I would say Max Lofi, in my mind, has made the biggest leap. And again, because we didn't really know where he was last year, but even as he came back in the start of spring to where he is now, I don't think there's another guy in our program that I have as much respect for. Because of the way that which he's handled everything, right? He wasn't handed anything. There was a time in a place where he probably was on the bubble, to be here, and not anything that had his control of, obviously how his ankle was going to come back and some things like that, but just how he's gone about his business, how he's worked, how he's been, I don't say at the bottom, but in a spot where nobody kind of knew who he was or recognized him. Because he was hurt, and as you come in a new program, you're trying to evaluate everything. And I was reminded by, a guy I coached for 10 years, and Jim Tressel, to never evaluate a kid when he's hurt. And usually you talk about with young kids, but when you come into a program, everybody's young to you because you don't know them. And where he was even in spring ball to where he is right now is light and days different. And another guy that went on the play hard board that is very difficult to do, and especially at a position where sometimes you call them skilled athletes. We don't. Not that I don't respect those guys, but sometimes I have a little harder time putting those guys up on the board. But he has done an unbelievable job of, I'd say winning us over, but winning everybody and just taking advantage of every opportunity that he has. And I really expect some big things for him, and I'm excited to watch him play this entire season.
You talked before about some of the challenges of week one. What do you know or think you know about Western Michigan at this point, and what you need to do well?
Good question. I mean, we know as little as we ever have known, right? I mean, they got a new offensive coordinator, they got a new defensive coordinator, and they got a new special teams coordinator, right? So what do you know, right? Obviously, the head coach is an offensive guy. Does he stick in, what the head coach has done, or is it more of the Walt Bell? And, are they going to be the Louisiana Lafayette, where the defensive coordinator came from? I mean, so there's a lot of unknowns. Even with transfers and things like that, there's still a lot of unknowns. But I think the good thing about that, whether it's game one or even a game one where, you got a lot of guys returning, meaning you have an idea of what their offense is going to be and what their defense is going to be, it allows us to make sure we focus on ourselves. And I think that is really key and really critical in college ball in particular, because you don't have those preseason, opportunities to challenge yourself. So you really have to be able to focus on yourself, do the things that you do and do them really well. And you get to find out, your maturity of a team early on, just because you get to see how you can problem solve in week one. I don't know if they come out in a 4-down front or a 3-down front. Studies would tell you they're going to come out in a 4-down front. They're 95%, last year at, where they were before Louisiana Lafayette in a 4-down front. Well, that could be different, right? I mean, they were last year in 11 personnel, 90-some% of the time, but who knows? Maybe they come out in 10 and 12. So a lot of unknowns that'll make you just say, hey, let's focus on the things that we do and do them really well, and let's see what kind of maturity we have in week one and our ability to problem solve as we, get a chance to see what's really happening on an iPad as you come over from the sideline. And if I would say anything about last year, that's where I think after week 1 and 2, I did recognize one of our shortcomings was our ability to problem solve as things changed. As things changed within a game, as things changed from the start of a game, because, I felt like last year we were really good with the things we prepared for, but we were not nearly as good with the things that we hadn't prepared for. And, so that comes down on the way that which you prepare, but your ability and maturity-wise to be able to problem solve, and I think we'll get a great look at that in week 1.
Lucas, it's going back to the defensive line. In addition to the 4 guys listed on the unofficial depth chart in Brandon Lane, anyone else showing you that maybe they're ready to get out there on the field?
I don't know who's all listed on that. I know that.
Oh, I can tell you.
It's okay.
I mean, I was
go
just
ahead. Tell me who's all
I was trying
listed.
to be concise with my question.
There you go.
Neal, Hills, Barton, McDonald are the top 4, and then I just threw Lane on there as well.
Well, so to be honest with you, through fall camp, I would say we were going to go 6 deep at D-line. And I really did believe that. That was a group that had made a lot of improvements, I thought, from last year. And our ability to say, hey, we can go 6 deep. So Brandon Lane will definitely be a guy that you will see, and how much time we'll see. And then Dylan Johnson is for sure a true freshman that's going to play. And how much we'll see, right? The idea of us, trying to play those guys, 40 snaps a game, being the, maybe the top 3 guys. There's a lot of other snaps in there that we need from Hills and Brandon Lane and Dylan Johnson. And we're only going to be as good as deep as we can be in that position. And 2 weeks ago, we were planning on playing 6. Right now, I think we're planning on playing 5. And there's still a couple other guys that you would say, hey, we'll see in those first couple weeks if we need them, then they're there as well with, Mel and maybe even a Nolan Vills that are guys that, if the situation arises, meaning if we get into some goal line situations, we're going to need some other big bodies in there, and those are guys that are ready and able to go.
Coach Sebastian Cheeks, he's a guy who transferred in, started at inside linebacker, and then you guys moved him to outside linebacker. In the short time he's been there, what have you maybe seen from him for him to be able to correct the 2 deep?
Well, sometimes things that happen, injuries that happen, sometimes help you find some other things as well, right? I mean, when Thomas Heiberger went down, we became a little bit thinner at the outside linebacker position in a spot that we felt like we were pretty deep at. And in camp, then we decided, hey, let's try Sebastian over there. He's playing and getting a lot of reps at the inside linebacker spot, but in some of the things that we had done in third down situations, putting him up on the edge, it seemed pretty natural for him. And in a short amount of time, 2 or 3 days, I think that we really feel like we found probably his most natural position. And I'm not saying he can't go back and play inside linebacker, but from what we've seen in the last 2 weeks, I would say that is the outside linebacker in particular, the Sam backer for us is a real home that I think he provides some things that are a bit different. I think his athleticism, his ability to play in space as a potential drop guy, and then his ability to rush the passer. He is a really unique, different type of pass rushing guy that I think could provide a lot for us throughout this entire season.
So Luke, looking at special teams with Nathaniel Vakos and just basically you talked about his change in form that he had.
Who talked? I didn't talk about his change in
Oh,
form.
no,
'Cause I don't know anything about. I was gonna say I don't know anything about his
Yeah.
change in form.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say that.
I was a special teams coordinator for a little while, but I still didn't know anything about the change in forms.
But he said he changed his form, during preseason camp and whatnot. But what did you see out of him and the kicking game, both place kicking and then also as kickoff specialist during preseason camp?
So I don't know that he'll be doing the kickoffs. If we can keep that off of him, that we would rather do that. But he has been really consistent, And don't get me wrong, he is not like he's made every single one. I'm on him, but the ones that he hasn't made have been very consistent. Meaning they're just they're 6 inches, a foot outside, very consistent, very well hit, very similar trajectory, which in my opinion tells you that he's confident in what he's doing. Right? There's sometimes his wins and different things like that, but he has been really consistent, and he has showed us that he's got a stronger leg and can, it'd be pretty consistent in the 50, 52, 53-yard range, and has proven that. I think the other day we gave him an opportunity at a 57 or a 58 because he had made already a couple and he was chomping at the bit. And it was the first time that he didn't have the consistency maybe in the kick. So maybe we found a little bit of the top end of the range, but no, I think that he has matured a lot. I think he has been really consistent through fall camp, and I think he's got a chance to be a weapon for us.
You have a lot of options at safety and next to Hunter Wooler. I'm just curious, what is it about Preston Zachman's kind of skill set that you like as a combination next to Hunter? So
I think it starts with the similar word that we keep hearing, consistency, right? Here's a guy who missed all of spring football pretty much. Coach Grinch came in and didn't even know who Preston really was because he was out all spring, so he didn't get an opportunity to see him play. And in another situation, Kamoy gets hurt, and even in fall camp gets hurt. So there's more opportunities for a lot of those guys, and we've moved them around, right? I mean, I think with with what Max Lofi has done playing the nickel spot, At the end of last year, that was more of an Austin Brown. Austin was, even through spring football, I would have said that Austin looked like he would be the nickel. And then obviously what Max has done is given us some ability to move Austin around a little bit. And you'll see definitely a bunch of different combinations in the back end. You'll see some other guys in some different personnel groupings that add some more safeties to the field. But I think all in all, what Preston has done is his consistency in a lot of the things that we do in the back end. And, we're not going to be super simple. I mean, we change it up a pretty good amount and expect some different things from those guys in the back end as opposed to just play man or just play single high. And his ability to be really consistent, his ability to be a problem solver, especially in our back end, has given us a lot of confidence in him, and he'll be the guy that'll be out there starting.
Luke, when we spoke with Kurt Neal a few weeks ago at camp, he really talked about how confident he was in himself and being a voice in this room. As a redshirt sophomore, a younger guy in this group, how have you seen him develop through spring camp, through fall camp, and into this moment now?
I think it started in bowl practice, to be honest with you. Sometimes, that's why you're meant to be in college for 4 years and maybe 5 years with a red shirt. And because sometimes when things turn over in those rooms, it gives other guys opportunities for their leadership to step up. And, what happened, being down a few guys in the bowl game, it gave Kurt an opportunity not just to play and start, but to step up in his leadership role. And as we went through the winter and into the spring, that was the challenge to him. Don't look at yourself as a sophomore or rising junior or whatever that is. Look at yourself as a leader. And you and James making sure that we understand that if we don't play in this room 5 or 6 deep, that it's going to be really difficult. And I think he kind of took that to heart. Right? I mean, to understand, look, I'm going to be better if the guys around me are better. And that takes leadership. And so I think he's just he's taken an ownership in that room in particular. He's taken an ownership in his ability to lead and recognize that the stronger the guys are around him, the stronger he's going to be. And, that's what leaders do, right? They make others around him better. And he's been a great example of that since not just spring and not just fall camp, but since the start of bowl prep.
Part of the national discourse last week was centered around former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores and their quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. My question for you is, their relationship soured. How challenging is it for you as a coach to maintain relationships with a much bigger roster here at the collegiate level? And how do you go about that on a week in, week out basis, knowing the length of the year?
Well, it starts in recruiting. I think everything that we talk about in a traditional program is it starts with relationships, and that's trust, respect, and love. And, it's something that we talk about, but like I said, it's something that these guys got to experience, right? And that's what is more difficult in a newer program, right? In year 2, I've always said that it's harder for me to build some of those relationships when I've never sat in a kid's home, when I don't really know the family, when I haven't got some of the ties all the way back to when they're 17, 18 years old. But that just is a challenge, right? I mean, the way the world is today and the way college football is, if you don't find a way to create a relationship in a short amount of time with guys you bring into your program, I think you're going to struggle. And, again, this word's going to continue to come up that you hear is consistency, right? And our ability as coaches to be consistent. That doesn't mean be soft. That doesn't mean okay, I got to be his best friend and build a relationship really soon and really quick and, he's going to be our quarterback. No, your ability to be honest with people, your ability to be open with people, but your ability to be consistent with people is really key and critical. And I think we'll see it more and more in college football, right, is do people go this traditional route where how important is a relationship, or do you go to this transactional route of how important is having a contract and how much I'm paying the guy? How does that win over and hold when you're trying to develop and maintain and grow a roster? So we all understand there's a difference in college football and there's a balance to what that is. But if I'd say the biggest part of what coaching really is, it's building relationships. And that's not going to change in the program that we want to run and we want to build. And it just becomes more difficult, right? It becomes you got to build these relationships in short amounts of time. You may not ever get into their homes. You may not have ever known their families. But you still got to build relationships in the same way, and it starts with trust and consistency.
Luke, another kind of off-field, bigger picture question for you. Beer's going to be at Camp Randall for the first time ever this season. What do you think about that?
I don't know that I'm going to get to enjoy that. That was probably the only thing I didn't say at the beginning, right? Of some of the stuff that has happened within college football and within obviously our administration. But I think if it adds to the atmosphere and it adds to the experience in Camp Randall, I think it's great. I'm not an advocate either way. I just, more than anything, an atmosphere is really, really, really important. And Camp Randall has always been an advantage in the atmosphere, as good as any place in the country. And if it helps us create a greater atmosphere, meaning maybe we get the students into the seats a little bit sooner so that they can, go and get a drink, that's even better. But I think all in all, it's just we're all seeing the change of the times, and we all got to be on board with understanding that there are some traditional things that we love and we don't want to let go of. But also there's some things that if we don't let go of and we don't adapt and adjust and grow with the times, that we'll be left behind. And I'm not saying that this is one of them, but it's just another indication that, hey, we got to continue to grow. We do as a program, we do as an athletic department, and our fan base has to as well. They have to be able to embrace the different things that maybe they don't love, whether it's alcohol, maybe it's the loud music that we crank up a little bit more. All those things are a part of us continuing to grow in all that we're doing.